If you have a car payment right now, this video is for you. The average new car payment in America is over $750 a month. Americans collectively owe 1.66 trillion in auto loan debt. One in four cars on the road right now has an open recall. You are paying more than ever for cars that break more than ever. If you miss a payment, you join the 1.73 million people who had their car repossessed last year. That's the most since the 2008 financial crisis. Now, there's a company out there that makes a car for $10,000. They've beaten every auto car maker they've ever competed against, and they are being kept out of the US. I'm going to show you who they are, what they've done to the rest of the world's car market, and why Americans are the only ones being left out of the most disruptive thing to ever happen to the auto industry in the last century. This company is called BYD. It stands for Build Your Dreams. And here is the single most important thing you need to understand about them before anything else. BYD is not a car company that makes batteries. It is a battery company that makes cars. That distinction is everything. Wang Chuanfu founded BYD in 1995 in Shenzhen, China, not to build vehicles, but to take on Japan's dominance in the rechargeable battery market for mobile phones. He was a chemist. His entire competitive thesis was built on chemistry, manufacturing precision, and cost control. By the early 2000s, BYD was supplying lithium ion batteries to Motorola and Nokia, two of the most powerful technology companies in the world. That phone in your pocket running on his batteries. Then in 2003, he made a move that looked so insane. He acquired a struggling Chinese automaker and pivoted BYD into the car business. Everyone said you lost the plot. You make phone batteries. What do you know about cars? His answer was essentially everything that matters. Because what's an electric vehicle at its core? It's a battery on wheels. The entire competitive advantage in the EV industry, range, cost, reliability, charging speed, lives or dies on battery chemistry. And nobody on the planet understood that better than Wang Chuanfu. BYD doesn't buy batteries from a supplier. They control the entire supply chain from raw materials to finished vehicle. Their reach extends into batteries, mining, and semiconductors. That vertical integration is the weapon that every competitor is now scrambling to understand. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, one of the greatest investors in history, described him as a combination of Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and Bill Gates, all rolled into one person. Berkshire Hathaway invested $232 million into BYD in 2008. That stake eventually grew to over $9 billion, nearly a 40-fold return. Buffett and Munger bet on the battery guy. In 2011, Elon Musk laughed at him. He said, "Have you seen their car?" Musk said in a Bloomberg interview, "I don't think it's particularly attractive. The technology is not that strong, and BYD as a company has pretty severe problems in their home turf in China. I think their focus is, and rightly should be, in making sure they don't die in China." BYD did not die in China, and Elon Musk is not laughing anymore. In 2023, they outsold Tesla globally. And Musk posted online, that was many years ago. Their cars are highly competitive these days. Here's the angle most coverage skips because it reframes the whole story. Wang Chuanfu was exceptional, but he didn't get there alone. China made a calculated, long range decision that internal combustion engines was a dead end for them specifically. They were importing massive amounts of oil. Their cities were suffocating in pollution. And in traditional gas engine technologies, they were decades behind the West with no realistic path to catching up. So instead of trying to win a game they were already losing, they just flipped the table entirely. By 2010, China's State Council had officially designated a new energy vehicle as one of the strategic emerging markets. EVs went into every national 5-year plan. The government built the public bus and taxi fleets first, giving companies like BYD a reliable government contracts before any consumer market existed, ensuring they'd survive long enough to get good. From 2009 to 2022, the government poured over $29 billion into EV subsidies and tax breaks. BYD alone received 3.7 billion in direct subsidies between 2018 and 2022. Is that an unfair advantage? That's a legitimate debate. But here's what else is true. In 2024 alone, BYD invested $7.5 billion dollars of its own money into R&D. Their total R&D spend over 14 years has exceeded $25 billion, dollars, dwarfing what they received from the government. China identified a weakness, bet everything on leapfrogging it, and then protected their companies long enough for that bet to pay off. The government built the runway. Wang Chuanfu built the plane, and now that plane is landing on every market on earth except one. That is the part that should stop you cold. There is a pattern to what BYD does when it enters a new market, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. They come in with better battery technology, lower prices, and relentless iteration. And the competition just doesn't lose market share, they lose the ability to compete at all. Let's go market by market. For most of this century, foreign automakers totally dominated China's car market. GM, Volkswagen, Toyota, BMW, millions of cars sold every year, billions in profit. GM executives openly called China their forever profit machine, counting on roughly $2 billion in annual dividends. Then BYD arrived with a battery they couldn't match with a price they couldn't touch. BYD became China's best selling brand, knocking Volkswagen from the top spot for the first time in 38 years. GM went from a $75 million profit in China in Q2 of 2023 to $104 million in losses in 2024. Toyota's income from Chinese venture collapsed 73% in a single quarter. Ford has lost over 5 billion in China since 2020. Volkswagen warned it might close factories in Germany for the first time in its history. GM's own Mary Barra said on an earnings call, very few people are making money there. The amount of companies losing money cannot continue indefinitely. Then Southeast Asia, Japanese automakers suffered the biggest market share losses of any car brand between 2019 and 2024 across China, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. There are markets where Japanese brands spent decades building loyalty so deep that almost every car on the road was a Toyota or a Nissan. In Indonesia, Japanese made EVs jumped from 3.2% of battery electric vehicle sales in 2023 to over 61% by 2025. Just 2 years gone. Then Europe, BYD only officially began selling cars beyond Norway and the Netherlands in late 2022. Within 2 years, before their factory in Hungary even opened, they were outselling Fiat, Dacia, and Seat in UK, Fiat and Seat in France, Seat in Italy, and Fiat in Spain. In the UK alone, BYD sales surged nearly 577% year over year for the first 9 months of 2025. As of 2025, BYD commands nearly 20% of the entire global EV market. Just for context, Tesla sits at 7%, and Wang Chuanfu has been direct about where this ends. He forecasts that foreign brands' joint venture market share in China would fall from 40 to 10% within 3 to 5 years. Not a prediction schedule, just a demolition. Let's get out of the political conversation for a minute and get concrete. Forget tariffs, forget trade policy, forget Washington. Just imagine for a second what it would mean for a normal American family if a reliable car cost 10, 15, $20,000 with tariffs and all. In a market where BYD was competing, those numbers are not fantasy. Even when 100% tariff applied, analysts say BYD would still have the cheapest EV in America, undercutting every domestic automaker. So, what does that actually look like in someone else's real life? Right now, the average monthly payment exceeds $750. That is before car insurance, before maintenance, before gas. For a lot of us, especially working families outside of major cities where a car isn't optional, it's survival, That payment is the second biggest bill they have after rent. A $15,000 car financed reasonably might be $250 to $300 monthly payment. That's $400 to $500 back a month to their pocket every month. And that's groceries. That's a credit card bill. That's kids' activities that wasn't in the budget before. For a two-car household, which describes most of America, that gap doubles. And that's before you factor in fuel. Before, these cars are not even gas cars, they're EVs. BYD's cheapest model starts under $10,000. In China, it's all electric. The average American drives about 1,000 miles a month. Charging an EV at home versus filling up a tank of gas saves 100 to 200 a month depending on where you live. Add that up with the monthly payment. You're saving $700 a month already. That's life-changing money for a family living paycheck to paycheck. Now let's talk about reliability. Right now, one in four cars in America has an open recall. That car you bought that you're paying $715 a month for may have a known defect that hasn't been fixed yet. BYD built its entire competitive identity around battery quality. Their CEO once pointed out that BYD has never had a battery recall, while industry giants like Sony and Sanyo has. Quality isn't an afterthought for them, it's the product. Think about what that means for a single mom in a mid-sized American city whose entire job, whose kids' school pickups, their life's logistics depend entirely on her car working every single day. Right now, she's one breakdown away from the crisis, one missed car payment away from a repo. She has no margin. The American car market has given her a $40,000 problem and called it a solution. Now think about what happens to the entire car market with a serious competitor problem, and they come in at $15,000. Suddenly, Ford has to answer to why their trucks cost 60K. GM has to explain that $750 car payment. The market has to compete, truly compete, for the first time in decades on the thing that matters most to ordinary people: price. That's what competition does. That's what BYD has done in every single market it has entered. It hasn't just sold cars, it has forced the entire industry to reckon what a car should actually cost. The Americans haven't gotten that reckoning yet. And you can see the damage in the repo numbers. The default rates in the 1.66 trillion in auto loan debt that's quietly crushing household budgets across the country from Detroit to Washington, having them point at each other. The official reason Americans can't buy one of these cars is national security. They're concerned that Chinese made vehicle softwares could surveil Americans, that the data your car collects, your location, your routes, your habits, could end up in the hands of the Chinese government. Let's be honest about that for a second. Your car insurance company is already collecting your data and selling it right now. Companies like GM were caught sharing driving behavior data with insurers without drivers clearly knowing, resulting in rate hikes for millions of people. Your phone, which goes everywhere your car goes, is a surveillance device you paid for and carry voluntarily. You've accepted cookie policies you've never read on every website you visited for the last 20 years. You post your location, your family, your daily routine on social media without a second thought. The idea that the specific threat to American freedom is a Chinese made car and not the existing architecture of data harvesting that American corporations have already built around you is not a national security argument. It's a talking point. So, what's the real argument to be made? Here it is. The American auto industry, GM, Ford, Stellantis, the big three, has spent decades building one of the most effective lobbying operations in Washington. These are companies that have survived bankruptcy, government bailouts, and every single market shift by doing one thing consistently well: protecting their access to the American consumer from any meaningful competition. Think about what that lack of competition has produced. Cars that cost 40, 50, 60,000 financed over 7 years because that's the only way to make the payment look manageable. Quality so poor that one in four gets broke with an open recall. Paying 750 a month is not enough for them. Automakers are now moving to subscription models. Oh, you want those heated seats? That's a monthly fee. You want full driver assist? Subscription. Features that are physically built into the car you already bought, now locked behind the paywall. This is not innovation. This is what happens when an industry knows you have no other choice. Competition fixes it, not gradually, immediately. The moment a credible manufacturer enters a market at a dramatic lower price point, every player has to respond or lose their customers. That's not a theory. We just watched it happen to China, Southeast Asia, and Europe. BYD shows up, and suddenly the entire industry has to justify prices, improve its quality, and actually earn the customer's money. Americans have never gotten that pressure applied to their market, and to the people with the most to lose from it, the companies charging you 750 for a month for a car with a recall are the same ones funding campaigns for the people who set the tariff rates. That's not a conspiracy. That's just how Washington works. The surveillance argument is a distraction. The real protection happening here isn't protecting you, it's protecting them. BYD went from phone batteries to the world's largest EV manufacturer in under 30 years. They've displaced GM, Ford, Volkswagen, and Toyota in market after market, not through luck, but through a battery advantage that took decades to build and that no competition has yet figured out how to close. Elon Musk laughed at them. But by 2023, he was warning that Chinese EV makers could pretty much demolish most other car companies in the world without stronger trade barriers. That's not confidence, that's fear. Get better. The real question for Americans isn't whether BYD is impressive. At this point, that's not even a debate. The question is whether the people making policy decisions about what cars you're allowed to buy are making those decisions for you, or the companies that they have spent decades charging you too much for too little. That's the real conversation we should be having.